Hello and welcome. Tonight, the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi, states his country's commitment to safeguarding Africa's security and sovereignty. Ministers, MDAs face scrutiny at the Senate 2025 budget defense sessions. The NCDC sets up a committee to develop vaccine for Lassa fever. And a fire official says a blaze that broke out in Hollywood Hills is rapidly expanding after a mandatory evacuation order was issued in the area.
In on business news, Central Bank suspends extensions for export proceeds repatriation and enforces stricter timelines for exporters.
On sports news tonight, Everton sack manager Sean Dyche after a run of just one win from their last 11 games, leaving them a point above the Premier League relegation zone.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, President Tinubu orders an investigation into the attack on an army base in Borno State.
We start off with bilateral relations. The Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi, has stated his country's commitment to safeguarding Africa's security and sovereignty by opposing foreign interference in the internal affairs of African countries. Speaking in the company of Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, in the State House after meeting with President Bola Tinubu, the Chinese minister said China will provide Africa with a grant of 1 billion yuan for military assistance, amongst other things. Mr. Yi also disclosed that Nigeria's wish to increase the currency swap agreement is being considered and invited Nigeria to issue Chinese panda bonds for more favorable returns. Our State House correspondent, Larry Lasisi, reports.
President Bola Tinubu arriving for the meeting with a delegation led by the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi. After the closed-door meeting, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, leads his counterpart to a joint press briefing. According to the ambassador, the meeting seeks to deepen the relationship between both countries.
Nigeria remains committed to the implementation of the agreements and MOUs, and also, of course, to, just like Minister Wang said, to ensure that we expand this upgraded relationship, which is the comprehensive strategic partnership.
The Chinese minister, in his remarks, touched on the financial cooperation between both countries.
The renewal of the currency swap agreement shows how well we have carried out our financial cooperation and sustained its momentum. As with regard to Nigeria's wish to increase the line of the currency swap, we will favorably study and consider the issue. Our cooperation is going well in many ways in terms of finance. For instance, we welcome Nigeria to issue panda bonds in China because we have full confidence in Nigeria's credibility.
He also made clear his country's position on security on the African continent and the West African region.
China will firmly support Africa in safeguarding its legitimate rights and interests, practicing true multilateralism and not letting power politics and bullyism find their place in Africa. At the United Nations Security Council, China's vote will always go to Africa. China supports Nigeria in rallying countries in the region to achieve strength through unity, to build synergy through reconciliation, and to promote security through cooperation in order to achieve peace and stability in the region.
A position Nigeria supports.
So private military companies, as far as we're concerned, it doesn't matter whether they're from north, south, east, west. We don't think it is going to provide the panacea. But when you work with us, then we're able to lead others in solving the problem. And also, we want to work with countries like China in domesticating production of military equipment, both kinetic and non-kinetic. This is what we're looking for, so that we don't have to go out looking to procure, and the delays and the, so many rules and regulations.
The Chinese minister is on a 2-day visit to Nigeria and is the first foreign envoy to visit the president this year. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Staying with the Nigeria-China relations, the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi, has concluded his meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House. Now, after the meeting, the Chinese diplomat, alongside Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Ambassador Yusuf Tugar, briefed the media on some of the bilateral issues that were discussed at the meeting. Earlier, Ambassador Tugar had hosted Mr. Yi in his office, where he promised that Nigeria is committed to upholding the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding signed between both countries. The minister also pledged Nigeria's commitments to supporting the One China principle and assured Nigeria's continued support for China at the international stage.
Nigeria recognizes and appreciates the high-level visits between the officials of the two countries that have helped in shaping and strengthening this existing relationship between both countries. You will recall that His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu paid a state visit to China from the 3rd to the 4th of September 2024 and was received by his Chinese counterpart, during which 4 MOUs were signed. Nigeria reaffirms its commitment to the terms of the MOUs, which are currently at various stages of implementation. Importantly, we formalize the upgrading of our relationship from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Work together to elevate Nigeria-China relations to new heights. I'm confident that our deliberations will yield meaningful outcomes in fostering a brighter future for our nations and our peoples.
To the National Assembly, where ministers and heads of government agencies today faced intense scrutiny during the 2025 budget defense sessions in the Senate. Among those under fire were the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, Mr. Lanre Issa Onilu, and the Director General of the News Agency of Nigeria, NAN, Mr. Ali Mohammed Ali. Mr. Edun, alongside the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Mr. Atiku Bagudu, were questioned by the Senate Committee on Appropriation on the implementation of the 2024 budget, particularly the capital expenditure component. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, now reports.
Members of the Senate Appropriations Committee meet with the President's economic team, led by the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, as the 2025 budget defense session kicks off in earnest.
There is no way this country's economic would last.
The chairman of the committee opens the conversation by inviting the ministers to explain, among other things, the status of the nation's economy and the content of the 2025 appropriation bill.
As we look at the 2025 appropriation bill, we are poised to continue in the same positive direction, including increased economic growth. Under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is no longer a place where rent seeking, where unproductive activity yields huge rewards.
Today, our subnationals are more liquid and they are able to meet their commitments. And even the federal government prioritization and performance of all the initiatives we have put forth, CNG transition, are all supporting the strategy, and we are seeing the benefit.
Not fully satisfied, the senators raise questions on the capital expenditure for 2024, as well as the savings and expenditure from the removal of fuel subsidy, among other inquiries.
In as much as the revenues are actually improving, but the independent revenues of the GOEs was very dismal. Even NLNG, the dividend that was meant to have come in, didn't come in as at that time. So I need a confirmation whether it has come in now and how well are those GOEs performing.
One of the reasons that constituted a cog in the wheel of the successful implementation of the capital component of the budget, issues of payment
but now it is concentrated in the office of the Accountant General. And it has brought a lot of bureaucratic red tape and bottlenecks in the process of implementation. And it has also, according to that school of thought, created a lot of corruption.
Amidst the barrage of questions, Mr. Edu requests for a closed-door session to provide detailed explanations to the questions, and the media is therefore excused from the crucial session. After the 3-hour closed-door session, there is no further communication with the media. Separately, the Senate Committee on Information and National Orientation met with the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Mr. Lanre Issa Onilu, and the Director General of the News Agency of Nigeria, Mr. Ali Mohammed Ali.
That we do not have prosecutorial power, like I said. Our own is moral suasion.
They did not provide satisfactory answers to the committee and eventually were asked to go and reconcile their figures in the 2024 budget implementation presentation. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
To economic matters, the National Bureau of Statistics will introduce 3 new indexes in its January data. This is part of the rebasing of the GDP and Consumer Price Index for the economy. This was part of the information shared by the Statistician General, Prince Adeyemi Adeniran, during an enlightenment workshop organized by both the National Bureau of Statistics and the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in Lagos.
11 years since the last rebasing of Nigeria's gross domestic product, and even longer since the basket measuring consumer price index was constituted, the National Bureau of Statistics announced the initiation of the process in October 2024. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group is working with the NBS on this sensitization workshop for citizens, the private sector, and other stakeholders through the media.
Previous rebasing of the economies, especially of the GDP and CPI, has triggered historically a lot of mixed reactions. Some of those reactions came from not understanding the methodology. Some of those reactions came from the weaponization of the rebasing.
The changes begin in the next monthly data and should include 3 new indexes: services, energy, and farm produce.
All these new sectors they are new, they are emerging, and they are not well captured in the last rebasing. We have made concerted efforts to ensure that we capture their activities, and then we'll be measuring them accurately as we make progress. Not only this, we also like to update our consumption basket. We know that we have about 740 items in our basket that we use to complete inflation now. We'll be seeing what we have done to upgrade that in the presentation.
The NBS assures that intentionality has been applied to the indices to be considered, which include the base year.
NBS conducted another survey in 2024 to capture expenditures of household on rare items, durable goods. Also, we bank on our administrative statistic. CBN gave us expenditures of household on all these POS, check, or financial transactions. Even National Insurance Commission also gave us some data.
This CPI series affects or influence monetary policy.
It is expected that this meeting will produce some missing elements which the private sector may have shared before the new methodology is implemented. These were elaborated by a panel of economists and other stakeholders. Use of digitalization in carrying out the survey also look into the GDP of subnationals and some of the new output expected with the new methodology. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, the federal government commits to revitalizing technical and vocational education and training in the nation's education sector. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi, states his country's commitments to safeguarding Africa's security and sovereignty. Ministers, MDAs face scrutiny at the Senate 2025 budget defense sessions. The NCDC sets up a committee to develop a vaccine for Lassa fever. And a fire official says a blaze that broke out in Hollywood Hills is rapidly expanding after a mandatory evacuation order was issued in the area. To health matters now, the National Emergency Management Agency NEMA is calling for proactive planning, preparedness and collaboration to safeguard Nigerians against the risk of a resurgence of COVID-19. The Director of Planning, Research and Forecasting at the agency, Mr. Unimode Bandele, made the call when he represented the Director General at a strategic meeting on COVID-19 preparedness and response in Abuja. Mr. Bandele notes that the recent COVID-19 situation in China serves as a stark reminder that public health emergencies recognize no borders. Our correspondent, Benny Ark, reports.
This meeting, convened by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is in response to reports of a resurgence of COVID-19 in China.
Gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen.
The meeting aims to assess Nigeria's preparedness and response capabilities, strengthen collaboration among stakeholders, and identify actionable steps to enhance surveillance, monitoring, and readiness. The meeting was attended by representatives from health authorities and international partners. The focus of the meeting is to adopt proactive planning and collaboration to safeguard Nigerians against public health emergencies.
The recent COVID-19 situation emerging from China serves as a stark reminder that public health emergencies recognizes no borders. While Nigeria is not directly affected at the moment, proactive planning, preparedness, and collaboration are essential to safeguarding our citizens and mitigating any potential risk.
We have to put measures in place to make sure that whenever any disease like the COVID-19 mutant comes up, we will be able to arrest it at the very point of entry. Like we did in Ebola, some years ago. If we can be able to curb it at the airports, the land borders, the ports, we will be able to secure the lives of Nigerians.
The need for sufficient sensitization of the public on the recent human metapneumovirus was also underscored.
People are already asking, is this a variant of COVID-19 or a new disease? And I think it is important that we communicate this clearly to avoid misconception. Because even in this room, I'm sure that there are some doubts on our minds that is this a variant of COVID-19 or is a new respiratory disease. And I think it is important that this is communicated clearly.
The meeting is expected to yield actionable outcomes, including clear steps, assigned responsibilities, and a shared commitment to execution. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Staying with health matters, the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Jide Idris, says a task committee has been set up to develop a vaccine for Lassa fever. He disclosed that the committee is working with the private sector and the academia to build local capacity for vaccine development while reducing dependence on costly external sources. Speaking on Channels Television Sunrise Daily, Dr. Idris noted that collaborative efforts are necessary to address the disease effectively and ensure long-term sustainability.
I'm heading a task force trying to work on the vaccine for Lassa fever.
Okay.
Lassa fever vaccine, and we are going to start doing similar again. It also requires research work, working with the academia, working with the private sector to be able to develop this. So in a way, the best way is to have vaccines. But again, developing vaccines again is a tedious thing. It requires technology, it requires expertise, it requires funding. But we'll get there.
Are you working with the other institutions like the University of Lagos?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Others public health.
And the task force involves people from the academia. Many of the universities up north, down south. Private sector. So many things. So people bring in all their various expertise.
in place. Once they're not doing the clinical trials now, or the candidate we have, and they're in stages. When they get to the high stage now, they can start producing. You start now thinking of how do you manufacture in large quantities. So the plan is there, and that's why again for that unlocking the value chain is key. Because all throughout the years we've been totally dependent on the external people, and then after a while we forgot to budget it for things like this because we don't have the money. And once this happens, they will draw the funnel when soup.
More health news. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, says Nigeria is leaving no stone unturned as it prepares against any form of pandemic. Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, stated this as she reflects on the past 7 years, bringing into focus the many accomplishments that the agency has achieved, as well as plans for a better service delivery in 2025. She noted that local content is very critical in the fight against any disease outbreak, and assured citizens that measures are being put in place to ensure Nigeria is better ready to overcome any global health emergency.
So in terms of the new virus in China that was published, it has not been declared by WHO. Until WHO declares it, we cannot do anything in terms of us going on the media, on the TV and say, oh, this thing is happening. However, we have learned in terms of medical devices, we have learned that we need to have local content. And the executive order of Mr. President is making that to happen. It's making what we started 2019 to now be implemented to the advantage of the local industry.
In education, the federal government is reiterating its commitment to revamp the system by focusing on revitalizing technical and vocational education and training in the sector. Addressing chairmen and members of governing councils of polytechnics and colleges of education in Abuja, the Minister of Education, Mr. Tunji Alausa, says the initiative is to place emphasis on more practical training and hands-on skills acquisition to address workforce demand.
From across the nation, chairmen of governing councils and their members converge on the conference hall of the Ministry of Education for a meeting with the minister. The Minister of State for Education kickstarts the meeting with a call for harmony among members of various governing councils.
Fostering a harmonious relationship within a school system is the most important and enduring way to manage administrative chaos.
Issues of skills acquisition for industry-ready professionals dominate discussions.
In this revised curriculum, 80% of the learning time will be spent on practical and 20% on theoretical training, emphasizing hands-on skills acquisition to address the workforce demand for industry-ready professionals.
Challenges facing the various institutions are presented by the chairman.
The committee of chairmen of governing councils of federal polytechnics have looked at a number of issues, and key on the minds of everyone is the smooth administration of these institutions. We find that appointments of substantive rectors has become a challenge in many of these institutions.
The first issue we want to bring to your attention, Mr. Honorable Minister, is the resumption of the stalled renegotiation of COESU Federal Government of Nigeria 2010 agreement. The unions are agitated that the renegotiation of the 2010 Federal Government, COESU and other union agreement, which was near completion in 2023, was stalled because of the dissolution of the governing councils and hence the government team at that time.
The concerns are addressed.
The president is a man of his words. Once he says, I'm going to do this, he will do it.
But then we're talking and engaging with the unions that we now need to logically things that we know the government can afford in a realistic manner.
Beyond eliminating the issue of interference by governing councils, the federal government harps on the need for them to embrace the challenges of redefining the narrative surrounding the nation's polytechnics and colleges of education through innovative approach.
And now to the nation's capital, and Markwe Ogun Yusuf is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Hello Markwe, over to you.
Hello, Ayo. Well, we are starting on a condolence note as President Bola Tinubu has expressed his sympathy to military authorities following the death of 6 brave soldiers during a terrorist attack on an army base in Sabongida, Damboa, in Borno State. According to a statement by the Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, the President also commiserated with the families of the fallen soldiers whose sacrifice defending the country, he says, will be honored and remembered. President Tinubu called for a thorough investigation to uncover the circumstances that led to the unfortunate incident and commended the armed forces for their swift response in launching effective retaliatory strikes. He also appealed to Nigerians to support the military's efforts to restore peace and security in the country. While staying in Borno State, 2 police personnel have also been killed as Boko Haram terrorists attacked a police station in Gajiram and Gazai local government area. One other police officer was critically injured as the terrorists exchanged fire with police on duty at the station before they were eventually overpowered and repelled with the assistance of the Civilian Joint Task Force who are stationed near the police facility. According to a security source, the Boko Haram terrorists attacked the station around 11 p.m. on Wednesday. The source adds that no facility or security equipment was affected in the attack. A statement by the Borno Command of the Police, that's a Public Relations Officer, ASP Kenneth Dasso, confirms the attack and says grenades were recovered during an assessment tour to the scene of the attack in Ngazai. Still ahead, central bank suspends extensions for export proceeds repatriation and enforces stricter timelines for exporters. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back to politics. In Rivers State, the State House of Assembly has overridden Governor Siminalayi Fubara following the passage of 2 bills which were sent to him for his assent. This happened during plenary today in Port Harcourt following a motion moved by Honorable Major Jack, the leader of the House, who reminded the Speaker that the time frame had elapsed as required by law.
It's the first plenary of 2025 at the Rivers State House of Assembly, and the lawmakers are in a convivial mood as they greet each other after the holidays.
We have passed this bill, we have sent it to the governor, he has been told his assent, the Speaker will have no choice.
And the order paper for the day are 3 bills that were sent to the governor for his assent, as the leader of the House raises the motion, informing his colleagues of the expiration of the time duration for the governor to append his signature, urging that they override him.
We have passed this bill, we have sent it to the governor, he has been told his assent, the Speaker will have no choice. This is the duty they've asked us to come and do. So please, Mr. Speaker, put the vote and let us vote. We have to talk majority here. Let us vote and override the government.
The situation is deliberated upon, with some of the lawmakers urging that the House veto the governor.
As the legislators, what we need to do is what we are doing now is align the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as ordered. Without delay, Mr. Speaker, let us do the needful, and that will be well for the state and all of us.
I urge this House to support the passing of this bill since the governor did not respond to our plea for him to sign it. So, according to the law, we have the right to override it.
The Speaker puts it to a vote and brings down the gavel, signaling the passage into law.
The Rivers State Return of Schools Amendment Bill 2024 HA5, a bill for a law to amend the Rivers State Education Return of Schools Amendment Law number 1 of 2005 and other matters connected thereto, is again passed and is now law for Rivers State in line with Section 100, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
He then proceeds to sign the new laws before criticizing the governor for his alleged failure to obey the rule of law.
Rivers State must move forward, and the Rivers State House of Assembly, this 10th Assembly, must continue to demonstrate that we're still in a democracy, irrespective of actions of the governor, which clearly shows total disregard to the 1999 Constitution as amended.
The three newly enacted laws are Rivers State Return of Schools Amendment Bill 2024, Rivers State Electricity Market Bill 2024, and the Rivers State Commissions of Inquiry Bill 2024. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
And that's all from our Abuja studios. It's back now to you, Ayo, for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Malkwe. First Bank Holdings PLC has been speaking about reports of a call for an extraordinary general meeting by two of the company's shareholders. A statement issued by the bank says the issue does not in any way impact the operations of the company and that all the businesses within the group continue to provide uninterrupted services to its customers. First Bank Holdings PLC is also assuring its customers, shareholders, investors, other stakeholders and the general public that it is taking all necessary steps to protect the interests of the company and its subsidiaries. The bank is making it clear that the group's performance continues to improve, resulting in a higher market capitalization, even as it works towards surpassing the regulatory minimum capital well ahead of the deadline. In the meantime, the registrar and lead issuing house are collating the returns from all receiving agents in respect of the company's rights issue, which closed on December the 30th, 2024. And to the courts there, the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has restrained all commercial banks in Nigeria from releasing funds or handling assets belonging to an indigenous oil and gas firm, General Hydrocarbons Limited. Justice Dende Dikbolu gave the order following allegations of unpaid loans of up to $225.8 million owed to First Bank Nigeria Limited and Ebian Quest Trustees Limited. The court also blocked all commercial banks from dealing in monies and assets up to the said amount belonging to persons listed as directors and shareholders in General Hydrocarbons Limited, including Unduka Obagbena and 14 others. The court then mandated the banks to disclose the exact balances in these accounts and provide certified statements of accounts within 7 days. General Hydrocarbons Limited is mentioned as the operator of an oil-producing block in the country, OML 120. The court ordered companies involved in OML 120 to disclose the quantum of products lifted, submit records of production and revenue since it began operations, with details of proceeds directed to the accounts of the directors. The directors of General Hydrocarbons were also restrained from transferring and or dissipating with any of the company's assets, including but not limited to crude stock, insurance policies, all forms of stock of shares, all forms of receivables and contracts which have been pledged as securities for the loan facilities granted. The directors of the company were also restrained from disposing of their personal assets, whether movable or immovable, within Nigeria, pending the determination of the substantive suit. The court then fixed further hearing in the suit for January the 20th this year. Let's now get the latest from the world of business with Will Ibom. Will.
Thank you, Ayotunde. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has suspended approvals for extending export proceeds repatriation timelines effective January the 8th, 2025. This policy applies to both oil and non-oil exports, requiring exporters to comply with existing timelines to enhance foreign exchange inflows. Non-oil export proceeds must now be repatriated within 180 days of the bill of lading date, while oil and gas proceeds have a 90-day deadline. Authorized banks are to notify their clients of these strict timelines, as failure to comply could result in penalties. The CBN's decision aims to stabilize the naira and strengthen Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves by ensuring timely repatriation of export earnings, eliminating delays, and tightening regulatory control. And the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has signed the 2025 appropriation bill into law valued at 3.36 trillion naira. The bill, named the Budget of Sustainability, was signed at the Lagos House in Ikeja. Governor Sanwo-Olu describes the 2025 budget as the largest ever by any state government in the country, reflecting the state's commitment to growth and development.
The Lagos 2025 budget is structured around 5 pillars: infrastructural sustainability, economic diversification, social inclusion and human capital development, environmental sustainability, and governance and institutional reform. These 5 pillars are well embedded in our Teams Plus agenda, and we believe it fully captures our determination to build on the gains of the past and scale up impact for the future. It's a 3.36 trillion budget that has 1.295 trillion as overhead and 2.07 trillion as capital expenditure, which is a 62 and 38% capital to recurrent. As you've heard, it will be the biggest subnational budget. It's the biggest that we've also signed, and we're convinced that we'll do justice to it. Year on year, we ensure that at the minimum, we implement 90 to 95% of our budget.
Now, let's take a look outside our economic shores. Ghana's rising inflation has kept the tempo as it rose to 23.8% year-on-year in December, marking the 4th consecutive month of increase. According to the country's statistics office, the increase represents a 0.8% uptick from the 23% rise recorded in November. The government statistician, Samuel Kobinanim, told reporters that the inflation rate is the 3rd highest in the last 13 months and highest in the last 8 months, citing rising cost of food items as a major factor for inflationary pressure. Now back home, MTN Nigeria is in the news again as the telecoms company leads gains in the domestic stock market. Ini John Mekwa tells us more.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Today, the NGX made some strides, thanks mostly to the market mover MTN. MTN today, 2nd straight day of winning, gained 22 naira to close at 242 naira. Now, all the sectors did do very well today. And I guess you would have thought that banking would not do so well, but guess what? Banking is up 1.70%. This is in spite of what's going on around FBN Holdings, and today we did see the share price drop, but the counter was able to make it through because of all the figures. Consumer goods still has Dangote Sugar. Today is being joined by Honeywell Flour International Breweries, and it's up 0.46%. And congratulations to the oil and gas counter. It's up today and recovered after about 2 negative trading sessions. Ondo again is moving it to the positive side, and the oil share index is good news also today. Another level is what we hit from 104,000 today. It's 105,530.74, gaining 1.25% at the close of trade, and the market cap at 64.351 trillion naira. What a pleasant day it is, especially for the bull.
That's a wrap on business. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Will. And one more story before our international news. Ahead of the 2025 farming season, Governor Mai Mala Buni of Yobe State has acquired another 40 new Massey Ferguson 375 model tractors that would be stationed at its zonal offices for hiring by farmers at subsidized rates. The Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Ali Goniri, who disclosed this while inspecting the implements at the State Secretariat in Damaturu, says farmers can also hire the tractors using online registration.
Officials of the Yobe state government arrived at the state secretariat, Damaturu, to inspect the 40 tractors procured by Governor Mai Mala Buni. According to him, the procurement of the tractors is in addition to the 100 supplied to farmers in the state for the 2024 farming season.
The main idea is to increase crop production for local consumption, for national consumption, and for exports. Don't forget, Yobe State, millions of its people are patient farmers, and the mainstay of Yobe State is farming. So we are totally committed to crop production. We are totally committed to agricultural productivity.
He further explained the tractors will be stationed at the 6 zonal offices of the ministry and farmers can hire them.
So that everybody who wants to farm should go online, should go directly to the offices at the zonal office and book and pay the appropriate fee so that he or she will get his farm to be cultivated. His Excellency Executive Governor of Yobe State, Honorable Mai Mala Buni, has directed that none of these tractors should leave the state. Basically, they are procured for the people of Yobe, and we will take them to the 17 local government areas of Yobe State. Yes. All these tractors will go to the nooks and crannies of Yobe State for the development of agriculture in Yobe.
Also, the ministry had recently trained 178 agriculture extension workers across the state on new farming techniques. These workers are expected to step down the training to farmers.
This training is very, very important to all extension agents because it builds their capacity so that they can transmit all they have from here to their farmers.
The state government is also planning to purchase motorcycles for the zonal inspectors for effective supervision of the state's agricultural revitalization program.
Evacuation order for Los Angeles Hollywood Hills West neighborhood has been lifted after authorities said the wildfires have been brought under control. However, the LA Fire Department is urging residents to exercise caution while returning to their homes. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A fire official says a blaze that broke out in the Hollywood Hills is rapidly expanding after a mandatory evacuation order was issued. Californian Battalion Fire Chief said there had been zero progress in containing the fires because of high winds and dry conditions. At least 5 fires are currently active across Los Angeles, with at least 5 people confirmed to have been killed. More than 130,000 people have already had to evacuate, and the homes of a number of celebrities, including Paris Hilton and Billy Crystal, have been destroyed.
Hurricane force winds are usually accompanied by rainstorms, but these are hurricane force winds that are combined with extremely dry drought conditions. To provide context, at 10:20 a.m. yesterday, the Palisades fire was at 10 acres. 12 minutes later, it was at 200 acres.
Tributes are being paid to the ex-US President Jimmy Carter at his state funeral in Washington. The flag-draped casket arrived at Washington National Cathedral in the kind of pomp and ceremony the former humble peanut farm owner ironically decried. All 5 living presidents were watching on: Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Mr. Carter, who was president from 1977 to 1981, died in December, aged 100. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden, here visiting a Santa Monica fire station as wildfires rage in Southern California, has said he thinks he would have defeated Donald Trump and won re-election in November. Speaking to USA Today in an exclusive interview, Mr. Biden did, however, add that he was unsure if he would have had the stamina for another 4-year term. In the wide-ranging interview with Susan Page, Mr. Biden also said he was still considering preemptive pardons for foes of Donald Trump. Britain will create a new sanctions regime to target the leaders of networks that smuggle tens of thousands of people into Britain each year, as well as the often Chinese makers of the boats and motors they use. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy said the laws would complement other reforms. Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has sparked concern when he attended Tuesday's inauguration of Ghana's President John Mahama with a holstered pistol at his waist. Some have described the unusual move as a breach of security protocol. Others have seen it as a lack of trust in the ability of Ghanaian officials to protect the junta chief. Mahama was sworn in after beating the candidate from the then governing party by a large margin in last month's election. Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has returned from self-exile, defiantly claiming to have won a hotly contested October election. But security forces later used tear gas to disperse supporters who had gathered to greet him. The disputed October the 9th poll, which Mondlane says was rigged, has sparked demonstrations over the past few months in which hundreds of protesters have been killed. Mondlane's return could further exacerbate protests, which have continued sporadically since the Electoral Commission declared victory in mid-October for the candidate of the ruling Frelimo party, extending its half-century in power. Supporters of the Venezuelan opposition leader took to the streets of Caracas ahead of the inauguration of President Nicolas Maduro for his third term. Opposition supporters rallied in the streets of eastern Caracas, waving flags and chanting slogans that called for Venezuela's freedom. Other major Latin American cities such as Buenos Aires, Santiago, Lima and Mexico City also saw demonstrations in favor of opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez, who has promised to return to Caracas to be sworn in as president. And archaeologists have uncovered intact portions of the foundation wall of pharaonic Queen Hatshepsut's Valley Temple in Luxor and the nearby tomb of Queen Teti Sheri, grandmother of Ahmose I, the first pharaoh of Egypt's Golden New Kingdom era. The discovery of more than 1,000 decorated stone blocks on the outskirts of Hatshepsut's funerary temple was announced by team leader Zahi Hawass, an Egyptian archaeologist and former Minister of Antiquities, who has been leading excavations at the site since 2022. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks indeed, Simon, and welcome to Sports. These reactions have continued to trail the announcement of Malian national Eric Shell as the new coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. The 47-year-old has been mandated to revive the Super Eagles' hopes in the African qualification campaign for the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
The announcement of Eric Chelle as new Super Eagles head coach comes months after Bruno Labbadia turned down the role. The 47-year-old Malian national will become the first African to lead the Super Eagles. This has attracted mixed reactions from football enthusiasts.
I believe we have capable coaches too that can do that here in Nigeria. They are doing well here in Nigerian league. We talk about the assistance of Coach Eguavon, that is Ogumodedi and Ilichuku. These are grassroots coaches and will become a performance coach. And we've seen them.
I think it's good because we know he has already trained at least maybe 3 or 4 countries before he comes to Nigeria now. The only thing that we need to support him. When we give him a good support, it's going to be good. And when people are, maybe some of people are talking by the side, it's not up to it. Let us give him a full support.
Chelle's immediate task is to revive the Super Eagles' 2026 FIFA World Cup hopes, as they currently sit in 5th position behind Rwanda, South Africa, Benin Republic and Lesotho in Group C of the African Qualification Series.
Honestly, sports, aside from technicality and everything, you still need some element of luck. So if luck follows him, anything can happen. So I believe anything can happen. So if he's given good support, so with the quality of players we have, if he's given full support, well, we should be able to do well.
He begins his stint in March against Rwanda in Kigali and Zimbabwe in Uyo.
To other stories now, struggling Everton have sacked manager Sean Dyche earlier today, just hours before their FA Cup third-round tie against Peterborough. Everton said in a statement that Dyche had been relieved of his duties as the senior men's first-team manager with immediate effect, and the process to appoint a new boss was underway. The Toffees are once again battling to avoid relegation from the Premier League after winning just one of their past 11 games, with that sole success coming against fellow strugglers Wolves in December last year. Well, from football to tennis, Italy's Yannick Sinner will begin his Australian Open title defense against Nicholas Jarry, while the women's champion Aryna Sabalenka takes on 2017 US Open winner Sloane Stephens after the draw for this year's first Grand Slam was made at Melbourne Park earlier today. The world number one Sinner must hit the ground running after being paired with the Chilean Jarry, who beat the Italian in their first meeting in 2019. In the meantime, the draw gets underway this Sunday.
All right, well, here they are. Champions, everybody.
How are you? Welcome.
Aryna and Yannick.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. That's definitely one of my favorite, and I have a lot of great memories. And to be back here and to walk with this beautiful trophy that as a two-time Australia Open champion, it's definitely something special. And I'm really looking forward, and I really hope that I can keep doing what I'm doing here in Australia.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bit different. It's a different feeling, but you know, we are all very happy to start the season again here in Australia, in Melbourne. It's a very nice tournament. You know, beautiful people. It's called the Happy Slam. So we are all very happy to be back here, and hopefully we can, all the players, we can show some good tennis, which I think is the most important part.
That's your sports news tonight. I'm Kelly Giga. It's back to you today.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. The Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Yi, has stated his country's commitment to safeguarding Africa's security and sovereignty. Ministers' MDAs today face scrutiny at the Senate 2025 budget defense sessions. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun from everyone here. You have a good night.